The thing that's going to help your team actually manage stress has nothing to do with some new stress app or some magical retreat where you think after a few days, people are going to come back all zen. Believe me, as a facilitator of stress reduction programs, trust me, this would make my job so much easier if that was the way this went. The reality is, to reduce stress, there are some fundamentals that most organizations, teams, and companies miss. And there's simple things that you can incorporate every day that you don't have to miss. For a little bit of context, I've been in the stress management and mind-body medicine space for over 20 years. I facilitated programs over 350 times. I've been around the world, including 2 TEDx talks, and I've spoken for companies like Merck, Raytheon, and the United States Postal Service. I have studied at Herbert Benson's Benson-Henry Institute for Mind-Body Medicine at Harvard, now associated with Mass General, 5 times, and I've studied with the likes of Eckhart Tolle, Thich Nhat Hanh, and Adyashanti. So in this video, I'm going to take you through the single best stress reduction techniques that I know of that you can incorporate today to help your teams, to help your managers, to help your staff and your employees feel less stressed, improve their performance, improve their relationships, improve their leadership, and optimize communication. Are you ready? Let's go. Most organizations treat stress like it's a willpower problem. Like they put posters around the break room that says relax, or it's the cat that's hanging onto the branch and it says just hang in there, baby. Those things don't work. Stress is a real thing that we are feeling in our bodies. And if we could talk ourselves out of it, we just would, right? We would just say, that doesn't matter. And we would move on to the next thing. The thing about stress is you can't just throw a party, give people some pizza and maybe a beer once in a while and expect their stress to go away. Stress is a perception. And what I mean by that is stress is a perception that demands are going to exceed our resources. Or the other definition I like is a threat, real or imagined. And I'm not talking about the real threats. I'm not talking about you crossing the street and a car comes hurtling towards you. This is not the time to sit down and meditate. It's the time to get out of the street. I'm not talking about you walking down an alley and someone's behind you and you don't know what their intentions are. Maybe they're going to do something horrible to you. That is not a time to do affirmations. That is a time to haul ass out of the alley. So this perception of threat. I do flying trapeze for fun. I climb a 25-foot ladder, I swing out, I do a crazy trick, and I get caught. And for some of you, just the thought of climbing a ladder is stressful. Well, for me, it's relaxing and fun. So stress to everyone is an individual perception. I do not have a problem with spiders. Other people find that incredibly stress-inducing and very fear-provoking. Stress is that perception that demands are going to exceed our resources. So it's this feeling that things are too big for us. Because if we could handle it, well, we would just handle it. It wouldn't actually be stress, right? So to tell someone just to relax or, oh, that's not a big deal, is really not only demeaning to them, it also means you're not hearing them. And to create a space in the Office of Psychological Safety, you want to make sure people are being heard. You want to make sure that their concerns and their fears are addressed, even if you personally think they're irrational. And this can be tough because we think everybody thinks like us. Right? I assume that everybody just thinks the same things are stressful as I do. And also in the office, you have to understand there's so much stuff going on. There's interpersonal relationships. There's the communication and the play between staff, between leaders. There's corporate culture. Then you have to take into account we have a whole life outside of the office. What is happening at home? Is your kid failing math? Did they just get a medical diagnosis? Are you and your wife splitting up? Is grandma moving in? Did the car break down and you don't have money to get that fixed? So stress is coming at us from all sides. So to tell someone to just relax and let it go will not work. So we have this very ancient system in our bodies and our minds and our spirit called the fight or flight response. It is the sympathetic nervous system. And when we go into fight or flight, we have this cascade of hormones and chemicals, and we are prepared to fight, to run, or to freeze, like the rabbits on my lawn. That I just don't know what to do thing. And if you talk to different people who have been in a horrible experience, like a plane crash or some sort of natural disaster, you have the people that were running into the danger. They are going to fight. They are going to make sure that whatever is happening is not going to overtake them. And then you have the flee. You have the people that go, oh, hell no, and they run. And then you have the people that stand there stunned. That freeze mechanism where they just feel frozen and they don't know what to do. Now, I don't know what your individual sympathetic nervous system response looks like, but it is probably one of those things or a combination of those things. And that is great when we're faced with real danger. It is not great when the threat is an email or the printer doesn't work, right? This huge system in our bodies was not made for the Xerox machine jammed, the printer's not working, the phone call didn't go the way we wanted to, and I got an email from my boss. That is not what the fight or flight response is for. So I often ask myself, is this fight or flight worthy? Is this truly something for me worth mounting this huge psychological, physiological, chemical response in my body? And so often it's not. So right off the bat, it's probably not going to completely change it for you, but recognizing that it's not a real threat, that you are not actually in danger, can sometimes dampen that response just a little bit. Again, it's probably not going to completely solve the problem, but it can dampen it. So this fight or flight response was meant to be short-lived. You have the danger passes, and you rest, and all those chemicals return to normal. Well, now our stress is constant, right? It's this low grade, sometimes high grade stressor, and it is really causing us to absolutely go crazy. It's estimated that about 60 to 90% of our doctor's visits come from stress-related illness, and millions of workers miss work every day because of stress. And it's estimated, the last number I read, that it costs employers about $600 per worker per year. And that might not sound like a lot, right? But if you have a staff of 600, it really starts to add up, and it affects the bottom line. It affects performance. So even if they do show up, they're probably not really there, because when we're stressed, we can't concentrate. All of our cognitive ability goes out the window. So if you're dealing with employees that are having a lot of stress and no work-life balance, then you're going to see effects to the business. So chronic stress doesn't just affect the bottom line, it affects each of us individually, and then that rolls through to our work life. High levels of stress affect our immune system. It affects our physical health. So at some point, our immune system can't handle this barrage of stress anymore, and it's going to kind of crap out on us. And typically when we get sick, at least in my experience, is that first day of vacation, right? Our stress response and our immune system has held on so long, and we finally get on that plane to wherever we're going, because we're finally going to take this vacation and relax, and we end up sick, and we blame the food poisoning or the guy coughing next to us on the plane. In reality, if we showed up to the vacation already relaxed, then chances are we would have less ability to get sick. Let me say that a different way. We'd have a bigger ability to be able to fight this stuff off. Our immune system wouldn't be completely exhausted. It has a cognitive impact. When we are stressed, we view everything through cloudy glasses. We view everything as a threat. We can't read body language and facial expression and tone correctly. We are not in touch with our own emotions, so we tend to get a little bit out of control, and we misread so many cues that should be neutral or positive. We misread those as negative. Now, this is what our brain's made to do. Our brain is made to look for threats. Our brain is made to constantly scan our environment to see if there's something wrong, to see if there's something that can harm us, to see if there's something different that we don't recognize that could be bad for us. So the brain and the mind are doing exactly what it's supposed to. It's just not great for our bottom line. It's not great for our mental, our physical, our spiritual health. It is definitely not good in a corporate environment. When our cognitive function takes this hit from stress, we tend to take more dangerous risks when we're stressed, and you don't want that in business. There tends to be more workplace accidents and illness and no-shows, and people who do show up, but again, aren't really there. They're just sort of not really functioning in the environment. And it's great to have a body in the chair, but you actually want them to be doing their work. You want them to be as productive and efficient as possible, and stress is going to cloud that. So it means that our staff is not only less happy, they're less productive, and they're not going to do the job that you need them to do, and this affects everybody else around them. We have a tendency to normalize stress, and in fact, I see stress as this badge of honor, right? Oh, I'm so stressed. How have you been? Oh my God, I'm so busy. We are wearing this now as a sign that busy equals success, that stressed equals success, and that is not true. I know plenty of people who are successful who do not walk around in a constant state of stress. This used to be me. I'm incredibly type A. If my schedule was not overflowing, and when people would say, how are you doing? I go, oh God, I'm so busy. I have so many clients and I have so many trips. And I felt like, and maybe you can relate to this, I felt like if I couldn't say that didn't mean I was successful, that didn't mean I was worthy, that didn't mean I was good enough for people to look at me as a successful person. And the more of this work I've done, the more I realize that that's not what success is. In a way, that's almost sort of failure, because yeah, I might be busy and I might have a lot of money, but if I don't have time to enjoy that money, if I don't have time to relax with my spouse and pet my cat and actually get my nails done every once in a while, then who cares? Who cares how busy I am? And I started to recognize that now that I'm less busy, and to be honest, I'm just as busy, but it doesn't seem that way. I don't feel frantic and rushed and hurried and harried, and I don't feel those things anymore. So now when I actually am a little bit busy and overwhelmed, people that have known me a long time, they say, yeah, of course you are. You're always busy. What they don't understand is I reframed that. And I realize that my self-worth is not tied into how stressed I am. So if you're finding the people around you seeing success as I have to be stressed and running all the time, we have to start to reframe that. Because again, that's going to affect everything, including our bottom line and our physical and mental health. The warning signs of stress are really insidious because we tend to normalize those things. Our body seeks what's called homeostasis, and it starts to think that it's normal that our shoulders are up around our ears and that we're clenching our jaw and that our hands are tight and that we have these headaches and that we're chewing gum all the time and that we're snapping at our kids. We tend to normalize these things. We don't recognize them in ourselves. So this is where it's important to reach out to the people close to us. If you feel like you need help, there is no shame. There is no weakness or failure in saying, wow, I could really use your help. I'm stressed. We'll talk about that in a minute. It also means that we need to look at the people around us. And if we're seeing that they seem to be experiencing these things, they seem to be experiencing these signs of stress, it's time to reach out and say, hey, I've noticed you seem to be drinking more, or you're reaching for more pain meds, or you're missing a lot of work, or you seem to be swearing more, or you're taking a lot of these noises, right? It's time to reach out because the person around you might be struggling and they might not even realize they're struggling. So reach out from a place of curiosity and see if they need help. Right now, I'm going to introduce to you one of my signature techniques. I have taught this probably to millions of people around the world, and it is one of my favorite things to do, to teach, and to show people how simple it can be to meditate. Oh, I heard you. You're like, meditate? No, she's going to make us meditate. Is this airy fairy BS crap no, that's not the kind of meditation I'm going to teach you. This is called a mini meditation. And the reason I like it is I was not good at meditation. I'm very type A. I'm very busy. I'm a dancer, so sitting still was a problem for me. My mind goes a mile a minute. I have so much stuff to do, right? Because I'm so very important. My to-do list is a mile long, which it is, but that doesn't mean I'm important. It just means I have a lot of stuff to do, most of which I could probably not do, and I would be just fine. But regardless of that, I found people all the time saying, you should meditate, you should meditate, you should meditate. Any sentence that starts with you shouldn't say, because no one responds well to that. And I found that anytime I would try to meditate, it was a miserable failure. Thoughts would intrude. I would start to realize there was something else I had to go do. I mean, it was awful. And so when I found myself for the first time sitting at Harvard with Herbert Benson and his staff and his assistants and associates, and we were going to learn to meditate. And I had these misconceptions about meditation. Perhaps you share them. I thought you had to sit a certain way. I could do that. Dancer had the cross-legged sitting thing down. You had to touch fingers together, and I didn't know which one. And I didn't know if you touched the wrong one, like you got sucked into an alternate realm or something like that, like a video game. It was terrifying. And you put your tongue somewhere up there and you rolled your eyes back in your head and you looked back here, and it always gave me a headache because it just felt weird and I couldn't do it. And then you had to slow your breathing down and you stopped your thoughts and then you floated away into a million bubbles. And I sucked at it, to be honest. I mean, I was really bad. One of two things would happen. This is my internal dialogue. I would sit down, I'd decide I'm going to meditate today. I would pick a finger, I would hope for the best, and I'd be like, okay, we're going to meditate. We are going to, nope, you're thinking, stop thinking. We talked about this. I'm so bad at this. Why would I even want to do this? I suck at this. Who wants to do something they suck at? This is really stupid. Why does my foot fit? My foot always, that's weird. Oh my God, you remember I had that hamster? God, what was his name? God, what was that hamster's name? That doesn't really matter. Oh, is that a car alarm? Oh my God, seriously, really? Right now, a car alarm? Wait, is that my car alarm? I don't even know what my car alarm sounds like. Yeah, of course you have a car alarm. Everybody has a car alarm. It comes with the car. No, you know what I should do? I should try to break into my own car. That way, no, they have the button on the clicker. You don't have to break into your car. Were you a doofus? Okay. Oh, no. Oh my God, do you know what I want to do? I want to get a whole new car. Oh my God, I would look so good in a Beamer. I'm going to get a Beamer. You know what? I'm making more money and I just got my PhD, and you know what? I deserve a Beamer. I should get a Beamer. And I'd have this 20-minute meditation fantasy about how I was going to get this new car, right? Or I would sit down, pick a finger and go, oh, I got to call that guy back. And I would remember that I had this thing that I didn't write on my to-do list that I had to do, that I had to call someone back, that I had to return an email, that I had to turn in a PowerPoint. And I thought, this is so great. If this reminds me that there's something that I have to do in order to be more productive and get that dopamine hit from crossing something off my to-do list, why would I not want to do that? So I started telling people about it. And finally, this one woman goes, I don't think that's what it's for. It's like crap, because I was really good at it. I really loved it. So when I found myself sitting with this meditation instructor at Harvard, and she said, now we're going to meditate, I thought, oh God, no, here we go. The fingers and the tongue and the eyes and the bubbles and yuck, I don't want to do this. And she explained to us that there was only 2 rules of meditation. And I thought, whoa, okay, 2, I could probably do 2. I hope one was sitting, because I had that part down. She said the 2 rules of meditation: concentrate on something repetitive, and when thoughts intrude, dismiss them without judgment. When thoughts intrude. I had always heard if thoughts intrude, which is kind of BS because they're going to intrude. Every 3 to 5 seconds, our brain has something really important to tell us. And if it doesn't, it just makes something up. It'll remind us of our hamster. It'll ask us if our shin always felt that way. It would wonder why our hair smells like that. This is what our brain does. This is how our brain knows we exist. I think, therefore I am. Thinking really gets us in trouble. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So when she said concentrate on something repetitive and when thoughts intrude, dismiss them without judgment, I was like, hey, maybe I could do this. So I'm going to teach for you right now the way they taught the mini meditation to us. So if you're in a safe place to do so, go ahead and let your eyes gently close. Please do not do this if you're driving or if you're operating some sort of equipment where you need to be paying attention. This will just take a minute. So go ahead and let your eyes close. And I want you to just notice your breathing. Just concentrate on your breath, the rise and fall of the chest. And you're not trying to change it. You're not trying to slow it down or speed it up. You're really just noticing it. And on your next inhale, think, I am. And on your next exhale, think, at peace. So it's inhale, I am, exhale, at peace. And when thoughts intrude, which they inevitably will, just dismiss them without judgment. Let them float away like clouds on a summer day and return to the breath and the I am, at peace. And you can let your shoulders drop and you can let your hands unclench. You can let your belly relax because no one's looking. Inhale, I am. Exhale, at peace. And thoughts just float by. No judgment. Believe me, they will be there when you open your eyes. And go ahead and do one more. Inhale, I am. Exhale, at peace. And open your eyes and come back to the room. You've meditated. Congratulations. For those of you who thought you couldn't do it, wasn't that simple? I found it so simple and easy. Now, it takes practice. There are still days that I do that and some thoughts intrude. But here's the benefit of this, right? So you're concentrating on your breathing, which immediately brings you back to this present moment. You're saying, I am at peace, which is an affirmation. So eventually your brain goes, oh yeah, I am at peace. And because you're thinking, I am at peace, other thoughts are harder to intrude, right? Because you can't think 2 things at once. If you're thinking, I am at peace, it's harder to think other stuff. And you can do this anywhere. This is so versatile. If for those of you who maybe have a formal seated meditation practice, that takes time, right? And it's something that you need to set specific time aside for. They say every morning you should do it. You should pick the certain place, keep that consistent. The time should be consistent. How you do it should be consistent. This is so flexible. You can do it anywhere. I do this in the car. Don't close your eyes because that creates a whole other set of problems. But I'm from the East Coast originally. So the yellow light means you go faster and you make it through the light. And there are so many times here in California when the light turns yellow and I think I'm going to get to go. And the guy in front of me slams on his brakes. And I'm like, oh, we're supposed to go on yellow. What are you doing? A little upsetting, but why am I going to put myself into a stress response? This is not fight or flight worthy. This is, I have to sit for 2 minutes, if that, and wait. Why not use this as a time to meditate? So here's what I do. I take my hands off the steering wheel and I stare up at the light and I am at peace until the light changes. And so I've used that time in the car when I could have been frustrated at the guy in front of me to actually meditate, to be present. And then that rolls out through my day. And I find that I handle everything with a little more grace, a little more ease, less stress, more patience, more compassion, more kindness. So doing this throughout the day, whenever you have a break, is really going to make a difference. I do this before I sit down to record, before I see clients. If I'm having a difficult time with a client, I will, in my head, do a couple rounds of I am at peace. You can do this anytime, anywhere. And it is one of my favorite techniques. I have taught this around the world, probably to over 1 million people between the outlets that I've spoken for, including podcasts and radio shows and things like that. I have taught this to the military. I have taught this to 911 dispatchers and first responders, to health and safety, to children, to medical professionals, to legal professionals. I have taught this to so many people. And when I'm done with it, I ask how people thought that was easy. And so many people raise their hands. It is a beautiful technique that pretty much anybody can do. So I encourage you to add this to your repertoire. And here's the other thing. It's a meditation practice. It's not a meditation perfect. You don't have to be perfect. If your parents told you you had to be perfect, or if you got this subconscious, unconscious message from the people around you growing up that you had to be perfect to be worthy, I'm going to tell you right now, you don't. When I studied with Thich Nhat Hanh, again, back at Harvard and Mass General, he shared with us that there were days he had trouble meditating because he couldn't blank out his thoughts. And I sat there and I thought, wow, dude, you have one job, which is to meditate. You're probably the best meditator in the world. And there are days you have trouble with it. Wow. And that really stayed with me, because if he had days that were rough, why am I being so hard on myself? Why are you being so hard on yourself? Meditation isn't supposed to be a struggle. You're not supposed to be pissed when you're done with your meditation. Oh, that was terrible today. No. That's not the point. The point is to help us drop into this present moment. And the point is also not what you can do on the pillow. It's what you can take off the pillow. So if you can meditate for 45 minutes and blank out your brain and not have a thought, and then you're a jerk to the guy at the coffee shop, I don't care. You didn't do it right. The point of it is to be able to be present with the people around you in real life, off the pillow. I don't care how good you do it on the pillow if you can't take it out into the real world, out into your company, out into your organization, out to that retreat that you're going to go on. So give yourself a break. Realize that it doesn't have to be perfect. And if you're thinking, I don't have time for this, it takes 30 seconds. It takes a minute. Do it while you're brushing your teeth, while you're driving to work, while you're walking the dog, while you're dressing the kids, while you're scrambling the eggs. In the shower, we all shower. There's no bad time to do this briefly. You don't want it to pull away from other things that you have to be concentrating on. But I tell you, this is going to up your concentration. This is going to up your game. Totally. So rather than scrolling on some social media to see about the latest cat video, because there's always one, it's still going to be there. Take this time to do a few seconds, minutes of I am at peace. I guarantee you're going to see the results. By the way, if you're a conference organizer or an HR professional and you see how all of these tools can be valuable for you, you'd like me to come to your organization or company, go ahead and click the link in the description below. It'll take you right to my website where you can book a call directly with me to see how I can help you and be of service to help your team, your company, and your organization. Now, back to the video. So let's talk about our next tool. So I'm a huge fan of affirmations. We've all heard of them. They're on posters probably around your office. I'm going to tell you how to really make them work and why they're good for us. So right off the bat, it's estimated we have about 60,000 thoughts a day, and 50,000 of those are negative. That's 80% negative thoughts. And what that does to us is it puts us in a negative state of mind. What we are thinking about and what we are looking at is what we're going to find more of, right? And it's hard to stop thinking things. We can't just often stop that thought. Replacing it is a really great transition to get you to a point where you can stop thinking things. So it's like somebody says, don't think of an elephant. Well, now we're all thinking of an elephant. So rather than trying to stop thinking of an elephant, do think of a horse. Replace that thought. And this is the joy of how affirmations work. There's rules to affirmations. Make them short, positive, in the present moment, and repeat them often. So when I work with people with affirmations, the first question is, what do you want? And then the second question is, what do you need? And then the third question is, what do you want? And then the fourth question is, what do you need? And then the fifth question is, what do you want? And then the sixth question is, what do you need? And then the seventh question is, what do you want? And then the eighth question is, what do you need? And then the ninth question is, what do you want? And then the 10th question is, what do you need? And then the 11th question is, what do you want? And then the 12th question is, what do you need? And then the 13th question is, what do you want? And then the 14th question is, what do you need? And then the 15th question is, what do you want? And then the 16th question is, what do you want? And then the 17th question is, what do you want? And then the 18th question is, what do you want? And then the 19th question is, what do you want? And then the 20th question is, what do you want? And then the 21st question is, what do you want? And then the 22nd question is, what do you want? And then the 23rd question is, what do you want? And then the 24th question is, what do you want? And then the 25th question is, what do you want? We have to know what we want, or what are we affirming? We have to know what we want, or we can't ask for it. No one gets into an Uber and says, take me someplace. You have to know where you want to go. So, or at least a vague idea, right? Maybe the outcome exactly isn't what you want, but you have to have a semblance of the direction that you're trying to go. So you figured out what you want. You're going to make them short, positive, in the present moment, repeat them often. You can repeat them out loud. This is great. You can write them down. If you're going to write them down, and I do encourage you to do that, write them in cursive, the loopy writing that we don't teach anymore, which is a huge loss to society. Affirmations, to-do lists, goal lists, shopping lists, all of these things are more effective when we write them out, as opposed to typing them in with thumbs or on a keyboard. Studies support that. I don't know that we completely understand why. I think there's something about using the hand and how it functions to the brain, but it goes directly to our unconscious, our subconscious. So if you're going to do affirmations and make them really powerful, write them out in cursive, say them out loud, read them, put them around your office, put them on the dashboard of your car, put them so they pop up on your phone. We have all this technology where we can use timers and reminders and screens in a positive way to remind us of our affirmations. If you really want to maximize your affirmations, not just write them down in cursive, do this the last half hour before you go to bed. That last half hour before we go to bed is the most pivotal time for our brain. It's when we're leaving things from the day. We're starting to decide what we're going to prune out, what we're going to keep as a memory, what we're going to forget, what we need to keep working on, those open loops that drive us crazy, that we're going to have to close at some point. So if you do the affirmations before you go to sleep, that last half hour, they're going to be more effective for you. The other thing with affirmations is you want to make them positive. So you don't want to say something like, someday I'll not be broke. That is not right. Someday, that's in the future. Not, don't say not. And broke, well, that's programming broke, right? Our brain tends to not hear those negative words. So it doesn't hear not, it just hears broke, right? So you want to make them positive. I am healthy and well. I am prosperous and abundant. I attract the right person to me. I have love in my life. All of these things. So those are really great examples of good affirmations. So the way affirmations work is when we're thinking a thought, two parts of our brain are communicating with each other. When we stop thinking that thought, the connection ceases, but there's this sort of little trail of dust that's left. I like to picture it as like the Milky Way. But the more we think that type of thought, or that thought specifically, that dust gets thicker and thicker and thicker and eventually forms a new neural pathway. It forms a new connection. It's called neuroplasticity. And up until a couple of decades ago, we didn't think we could do that. We thought once our brain was formed, it was just formed, period. But studies support, and now having things like fMRIs and all the research that we have, we can see that we actually can change our brain. We can grow and learn and create new neural pathways. So to break those old neural pathways, it's hard, right? I don't know if any of you have ever been snowshoeing. You're trudging through the snow and basically what looks like tennis rackets on your feet. I know the technology's probably gotten better since I was a kid, but that's what it always looked like to me. And the first person that's trudging through that snow is really hard, and it's really strenuous, and it's really exhausting. And by the time you're like the 9th or 10th person in the back, you're like, la, 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 that pathway's formed. You don't have to work as hard. But boy, if you try to get off that, you'll probably get dragged right back in because it's really hard to make those changes. So this is where affirmations help. Affirmations put us in a positive state of mind. Affirmations allow our brain to let that negativity go and lead us towards more and more positive things. As I said before, when we're in a negative, stressed state, everything starts to look negative. We start to view everything through this guise of negativity and stress. So if the affirmations can shift us out of that, that's a huge benefit, right? And the other way affirmations work, and I've had people say this, so just as a side note, studies do support affirmations for sports performance, for wound healing, for pain. This is one of the big components of hypnosis, is using affirmations and visualization. And it can work in the office space too, because it shifts us out of that place of negativity. And when we're in a place of positivity, it stops that stress response. We tend to be more productive. We tend to be more recognizing of patterns, of emotions, of cues that we otherwise would have missed. And one of the ways that affirmations works is we look for things that are familiar to us. Our brain moves us towards that which we know. So we have these knowns in our system and these unknowns. When we are looking to the knowns, it's familiar. So we go that direction. I have a client who's back on the dating apps, and she says, Kathy, I swear to God, I've dated the same guy in 7 different sweaters. Because her brain on some deep subconscious level goes, I know that. And she picks it, even though her brain knows it's going to be bad for her. We would rather stay with the hell we know than risk the hell we don't. And this is how affirmations can help, because it starts to reframe what we know. So let's say you're doing an affirmation: I am surrounded by loving and supportive friends. What if you're not? I really hope you are. I hope if you're watching this, you are surrounded by people who support you, who are your cheerleaders, who you know want you to succeed. I really hope that. If you found yourself thinking, I'm not really, okay, here's how this can help. Since our brain is looking for things that are known to us, if we repeat often, I am surrounded by loving and supportive friends, your brain is going to start to look for those loving and supportive friends. Your brain is going to keep an eye out for people that fit that bill. And it also changes how you are. It changes you. And to change a system, you only need to change one part of that system, and everything else will eventually catch up to that. So how you go into an opportunity, how you go into an organization, how you go into an exchange, if you go in more positive and open and ready to be friends and to make a deal and to get that job done, the people around you are going to respond differently. Those who are not loving and supportive are going to start to drop off, and you're going to find people gravitating towards you that fit what you're looking for. Studies show that people who are optimistic have, quote, better luck. They have more opportunities. They have more wealth. They have more life satisfaction. And in my dissertation, I did some research on this. I did meta-analysis of a bunch of studies, and it showed that it wasn't necessary that you have to be optimistic. You have to be not pessimistic, if that makes sense. And that was kind of mind-blowing to me. I thought optimism was the way to go. You have to at least not be pessimistic to have all this work. So for those of you who are listening to this and thinking, oh, here's more of this woo-woo hippie stuff, let me tell you who does affirmations. Elite athletes, NFL players, Olympians, judges, attorneys. There are highly successful corporate executives, corporations, athletes, high achievers who use affirmations to up their game. There are NFL teams who have someone on staff who helps them train their mind just as much as their body. Because if you've got, I'm a huge NFL fan, if you've got 3 seconds left and the score is tie and you're that field goal kicker, and this means the game, I really hope you're looking at those uprights and saying, I got this, I got this, I got this. I hope so, because you're going to be more apt to get it. Dart throwing, free throws with basketball, high jump, they've done studies on all of this and show that positive thinking and affirmations change the outcome. So before you poo-poo it as something that's girly and too weird for you to do, give it a shot. Because here's the other cool thing about affirmations. It doesn't cost you a thing. There's no copay, there's no prescription required, there's no side effects. And let's say you don't actually get what you were affirming, the benefit is still there because it's shifting you out of this place of negativity. And when it shifts you out of negativity, it stops that fight or flight response, and you start to find more and more positive things in your environment. So give it a shot. There's no downside. So really similar to affirmations is visualization. This is one of the other techniques I not only use for myself, I teach to people in my workshops and seminars. So visualization is basically daydreaming. And what's really cool about our brain is it doesn't recognize the difference between what we're thinking about and imagining and what's actually happening. This is why we can get so involved in books and movies and TV. We can get really sucked into this reality of things like dreams, right? How many times have we woken up mad at our spouse because they didn't come rescue us from the dragon? And they're like, I wasn't there, but it feels real to us. I have had people incredibly disturbed about things they dreamt about because our brain doesn't recognize it's not real. So this is why it's really important to pay attention to what you're thinking about and imagining, right? If you're projecting ahead to a meeting you're about to have with your boss or your staff, and you're fatalizing about how bad it's going to go, and you play this out in your mind, I can't tell you how many boyfriends I've yelled at in the car and had a full-blown argument with when they weren't even there. My mind just starts to go and I could get myself really worked up. And by the time I get home, I'm mad at that person. And they're like, wait, I don't know why you're upset with me. We can do that. We can get ourselves in this negative loop. I stopped doing that a long time ago because I realized, as kind of fun as it was to pretend I'm having this whole full-blown argument, it's not productive. It's not good for me. It's not good for them. It's not good for the relationship. So be really careful where you're putting your focus. Be really careful what you are daydreaming about. So I learned to visualize when I was in high school. I was a theater person. I was a theater kid, and I was doing a summer stock production of Oklahoma. If you ever did summer stock, you probably did Oklahoma, because I think we all did. But anyway, I was in Oklahoma. Red Barn Theater in Pittsburgh. Maybe it was the White Barn Theater. It was some barn in Pittsburgh. And I was a dancer, singer. I was in the chorus, and this was going to be my skyrocket to stardom. I was sure that the agents from LA were going to flock to Western Pennsylvania to see me do a chorus role as a 15-year-old, and I was going to be the next Meryl Streep, because I kind of look like her. So I was getting ready for this performance, and I was under a lot of stress. My mother was in the hospital. She died very young, so she was sick. My father was running around trying to raise me as an only child, and raising a small me was probably a nightmare. Meditation would have benefited him, I think. But I was in this rehearsal, and I was starting to get sick. I could tell I was getting sick because I had that tickle in my throat, which is my tell that something is going wrong in my body. And so I was being really melodramatic. I had my tea and my honey bear and all the stuff. And this guy who was in the cast comes up to me and he says, "Are you feeling okay?" And I said, no, I'm sick, and I can't be sick because, we're opening and this is my big debut. And he goes, okay. Have you ever visualized? And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm 15. And he goes, oh, right. He goes, right. Do you daydream? I said, yes. And I'm an only child, so I can talk to myself too if you need me to do that. And he goes, great. He goes, so I want you to go home tonight and I want you to visualize your immune system. No clue. Didn't know what that meant at all. So I said, okay, I don't know what that means. And he goes, okay, so I want you to picture a space behind your heart. I now know that to be the thymus gland, the seat of the immune system. He said, and I want you to picture white light growing there. And I want you to picture it getting bigger and bigger, brighter and brighter, and rushing up into your throat and devouring the virus or the bacteria, whatever's in there. Can you do that? And I said, yeah. And he goes, you know those old movies where the cavalry comes rushing up over the hill and comes down in to save the day? And I said, yeah. And he goes, that's what I want you to picture. Can you do that? I said, yeah. So I got home that night from rehearsal and I put my hands up on my throat and I visualized this white light coming out of my heart and growing, and it was rushing up into my throat like that cavalry, and it was devouring the bacteria and the virus, and this whole battle ensued, and there were swords and horses, and I fell asleep somewhere during the melee. And when I woke up the next day, I did not have a sore throat and I did not get sick. And I kicked ass as chorus girl number 3 in Oklahoma. Was not my rocket to stardom, but darn was it fun. And it taught me how to visualize. So if nothing else came out of that production, it really elevated my ability to have more agency and control over the things happening inside my body and outside my body. So one of the keys to visualization is really just bringing in all of your senses. There's so many practical ways to use visualization. You can visualize outcomes. See yourself shaking hands at that meeting and say, thank you, and signing that contract. See yourself being healthy and well, that sports performance with as much detail as you can. And the more you can feel it in your body, the more you can get excited about that thing or really feel that healing and that relaxation, whatever you're visualizing. That is one way that you can use this to benefit you in your office, in your organization, your company, your family, your relationships. Visualization is one of the most important techniques if we really want to up our game for stress reduction. Let me give you one of my favorite techniques. So this is called a progressive muscle relaxation. And I'm just going to go through it kind of quickly, but I'll give you the idea of what it looks like, or else we could be here for 20 more minutes just doing this visualization. And there's other things we got to cover. There's things I got to share. So with a progressive muscle relaxation, and this is a beautiful way to fall asleep at night, Jon Kabat-Zinn, who I also studied with, calls it a body scan. So you're basically going to close your eyes, take a couple deep breaths, and you're going to start at your feet, and you're slowly going to work your way up your body, and you're going to relax your feet, and you're going to relax your ankles, and you're going to relax your calves and shins and your knees, and you're going to picture your lower legs completely relaxed. And then you're going to move up the body. It's a progressive muscle relaxation, just what it sounds like. Some people like to flex the muscle and then relax it. So they might flex their feet and relax them, flex their calves and relax them, flex their knees and relax them, flex their thighs and relax them. You can see I'm doing this because I'm bopping up and down. The joy of being a visual kinesthetic, right, is I'm doing it along with you. This is a beautiful way to relax and go to sleep. You can visualize vacation, you can visualize outcomes, you can visualize how you would have liked to have handled a situation. We call this the do-over. Remember when we were little kids, if we were playing a game or we were doing something and we didn't like how it turned out, we'd go do-over, and everyone would go, okay. A little hard to do that as an adult. You can't really call the IRS and say do-over because they call that a felony, and we don't want that to happen. So, but you can do a do-over. So let's say you had an exchange with a coworker and you didn't like how it went. Let's face it, you're going to be ruminating about that anyway. You're going to be thinking about that over and over again. You might wake up in the middle of the night thinking about it. Great. Think about it. This time, change the ending. Change the ending to how you would have liked it to have gone. Change the ending to how you would have liked to have responded, not reacted. Change the ending to what you wish you would have said. Because here's what it does. That becomes a known for you. That becomes a way that you can start to retrain yourself to respond better to situations. So that the next time you're in that or similar situation, that's going to be a known for you, and it's going to be easier for you to respond in a different way. So visualization isn't just for healing and sports performance. You can use this for your performance at work. If you've got to do a presentation, visualize yourself standing up there confident, eloquent, giving the speech that you want to give. You can start to train yourself. If you want to have that meeting go really well, have everyone take a breath at the beginning and just imagine themselves in a calm and happy place. We all have a safe space that we can imagine. Mine tends to be Stonehenge or the forest in a clearing with a bunch of rocks in a circle and a fireplace in the center, or fire, like a fire pit in the center. These are the happy places that I can go to if I'm feeling stressed. We get to shift so much in our bodies, our minds, our spirits, our productivity, our relationships and communication by using visualization. So one of my favorite tools, I encourage you to use this any opportunity you get. Again, no side effects, no prescription. At the very least, it helps shift you into a positive, present perspective so you can get more things done easier in a better way with better communication and relationships. So let's talk about your last technique. So the last technique I'm going to teach is mindfulness. We hear a lot about mindfulness now in our society. More people are meditating. Doctors are often prescribing meditation and relaxation before they give pills and prescriptions, which I'm a huge fan of. So if we can use mindfulness in our daily life to enhance productivity, communication, relationships, why would we not do that? So mindfulness is similar to meditation, but not quite the same thing. Mindfulness is going about an activity with curiosity and focus, engaging all of our senses, and not judging what we are doing, not having those thoughts intrude. Jon Kabat-Zinn, again, calls this going about it with a beginner's mind. And that's a Buddhist belief anyway, so I don't think he coined that, but he says that a lot about a beginner's mind, meaning we don't have preconceptions about what we're about to do. So there's a couple different ways to do mindfulness practices. You can either just bring in one sense. So maybe right now, and you can do this if you want to, maybe you just close your eyes and you concentrate on what you can hear. What do you hear in your environment? I can hear the buzz of my little refrigerator across the room. I can hear a clock ticking. I can hear a car going down the alley. What can you hear in your environment? And go ahead and open your eyes if you close them. This is a beautiful way to bring yourself back to the present moment. You can do this with any of the senses. How does your body feel in the chair? How do your arms feel against the arms of the chair? How do your glasses feel on your face? What does that aromatherapy smell like? What does that pizza smell like cooking in the oven? It's a little harder with the sight because we want to label it, right? We want to say, oh, this is a Kleenex. But if I notice how it's bent and how the shadow looks and the shape that it's making, I could label it Kleenex, but what I'm really doing is just observing what it looks like as an object without labeling it. So once you get better at doing this, I advise you to use something that is visual so you can really experience it as itself and not have to label it. A fun activity is to have your spouse or a friend or a partner or something put something in your hand. Please don't make it be gross or like creepy or anything like that. But you close your eyes and you have them hand you an object, something small, and you feel it and you smell it and you actually experience this object. Then you open your eyes and see if you can experience it just with your sight. This is a beautiful way to bring you back to that present moment. It also trains you to use all of your senses, which is a benefit for business. Because if you're hearing with your whole body, and I know that sounds a little weird, but if you're hearing with your whole body, you can pick up on those slight changes in their energy. You can pick up on those slight body shifts if they lean forward, if they go, if they sit back, if they cock their head to one side, if they kind of furrow their brow, or if they make that disgust face with the scrunched up nose. You get to hear with your entire being. It gives you the advantage in negotiations and in business because you're present to their whole self and you're noticing things that you might not have noticed before. You are recognizing patterns that you might not have seen before. So presence hones us to be with nothing else than what's exactly in front of us. The other way you can do mindfulness practice is to take a task that you have to do every day anyway. I like to use doing the dishes as an example. Bring in all of your senses. Say you're going to do the dishes mindfully. You're not going to meditate. You're not going to listen to a podcast. You're not going to talk to your spouse or listen to music or daydream. You're just going to do the dishes. And I want you to bring all of your senses in. So how does the water sound as it's hitting the sink? Can you hear the bubbles crackling? Can you hear the dishes clinking? What's the water feel like on your hands? Is it warm? Is it cool? Is it too hot? Can you feel the sliminess of the soap and a piece of food on a plate that maybe you missed. As you inhale, what is the smell of that orange or that lemon wafting out of the sink? And when you open your eyes, can you see the bubbles forming? And I don't know about you, but every time I do the dishes, I set the bottle of soap down and this one little bubble goes boop off the bottle and it floats up to the sky. And there's this teeny little rainbow in it as the light hits it. And then eventually it goes poof, and it pops with this little spray of water. And you realize that you not only have a sink full of clean dishes, you've also basically meditated. And if thoughts intrude, just like with the mini, dismiss them without judgment. And you might be thinking, who cares? I can do dishes mindfully. But here's what this does. Because again, it's just like the meditation. It's what you could do off the pillow. If this trains you to be fully present with something, with someone, with something, and not let those thoughts intrude, you're going to be a better listener. You're going to be a better executive. You're going to be a better boss. You're going to be a better coworker. You're going to be a better spouse. You're going to be a better parent. There is no past or future unless we're thinking about it. It's all up here. This is how our thoughts get us in trouble. We ruminate on those things from the past and we worry about those things in the future, those what ifs. Why are we suffering twice? Why are we thinking about some possibly negative thing in the future that isn't even here? The more we can stay present, the more benefit this is going to give to us. I had a client that hated Sundays. I thought, why would you hate us? I mean, it's a day. Why do you hate Sundays? And she shared with me, she hated her job and she dreaded going back to work on Monday. So Sunday, she started to work herself up into this tizzy about how she didn't want to go to work tomorrow. Well, what a waste. She just blew a whole day projecting into this negative future. Her boss wasn't there. Her coworkers weren't there. The weird smell in the kitchen wasn't there. This was all in her head. And she was ruining an entire day of the week, the day that we should be resting and getting ready to start our week. She blew it. She hated Sundays. That was all on her. It wasn't the bad boss, the crazy coworker, the guy that microwaves the bad smelling food in the kitchen. It was all her. And she wanted to blame everybody else for the fact that she hated Sundays. One of my clients used to say, if you have one foot in the past and one foot in the future, you end up pissing all over the present. And that is absolutely true. It's a little bit crass, but it's a visual. It's true. The more we can stay present and not what if ourselves, the better we're going to be. I had a client who was an HR professional. She was absolutely incredible. And for all the HR people watching, I know one of the things that is probably the worst part of the job is firing people. I don't know anybody that likes that part. And she was told on a Monday she had to fire this guy on a Friday. And this was incredibly upsetting to her for several reasons. One of which is they had just brought him into the company and he was doing a great job. They just suddenly realized they were going to reorganize and didn't need him anymore. This was heartbreaking to her. So when she found out she had to let him go, she ruminated about this all week. She was losing sleep. She was having crying jags. She was throwing up. She was diarrhea. She couldn't eat. It was horrible for several reasons. One of which is, again, they just brought him into the company. He had just moved to Santa Barbara, which is really hard to do. They had just bought a house. They just got married. Oh no, I'm not making this up. They just found out they were pregnant and it was like 6 weeks before Christmas. And so she was absolutely dreading having to tell this man that she had to let him go. So she goes through this week of absolute living hell for herself. She sits him down in the conference room on Friday. She figures she'll rip off the proverbial Band-Aid and she goes, I'm so sorry. We've eliminated your position and we have to let you go. And she cowered back waiting for this huge reaction from him. And he stared at her for the longest time and finally took a deep breath and said, oh, thank God, I found another position and wanted to quit, but wasn't sure how to tell you all. She wasted a week of her life on the what ifs. We've all done this. And again, to quote Thich Nhat Hanh, why suffer twice? Why are we doing this to ourselves? We do this to ourselves all the time. So if you can bring mindfulness in and truly stay present for your presentation, for the meeting, for the hiring and the firing, it's going to give you so many benefits. It's going to stop that stress response, which affects so many systems of our being and causes us to not be as productive, to not be as happy, not be as satisfied, not be as good a communicator or leader or coworker. So there's no downside to mindfulness. It takes practice. It's simple. It's not easy. But incorporating mindfulness into mindful meetings, mindful walks, mindful meals, all of these things are going to give benefit to you. I have one little activity for you to help illustrate this, the whole stress thing and how our brain works. So I want you to look around your room and I want you to find everything you can find that's red. Go ahead, look, find everything that's red. Memorize everything that's red. Ooh, a little on button on that. Oh, I got a stuffed animal. Ooh, sign. Ooh, picture frame, button, handle. Okay, got everything that's red. Now, close your eyes. We'll just take a second. Close your eyes And remember everything you saw that was blue. I know, I'm sorry, it's drastically unfair. I'm actually wearing a blue shirt. Did any of you notice that? And I have a red streak in my hair. There was actually probably more blue in your room than red, but you didn't notice it because you weren't told to focus on it. And this is how our brain works. If we are focused on the negative, that's all we're going to find. That's all we're going to see in our environment is negative. There's this really cool cartoon that I show during my talks. It's two guys in prison and they're doing art. And one guy drew the bars on the window and the other guy drew the outside. And the one that drew the bars has this look on his face like, oh, wow, we have an outside. Where you put your focus is what grows. What you focus on is what you're going to get more and more of in your environment. This is just how our brain works. We're going to attract those things that we're thinking about. And we say we want prosperity, abundance, and joy and success. And we are programming lack and fear and pain. Using these techniques can help shift that. It can help shift you. It can help shift your team to make you a better communicator, leader, organizer, partner. There's no downside to any of this. You just have to do it. And I can teach you how. So let's tie this all together. So we're going to start with a mini meditation. This brings us to the present moment. We're going to use affirmations to shift into a positive mindset. We're going to visualize those outcomes. And then we're going to use mindfulness to make sure we're anchored in this presence. It is a perfect combination. It's a perfect system. And whether you choose all four or just one, I do encourage you to incorporate these into your day, into your meetings. There are major corporations that do things like this. They'll breathe together, or they'll do a quick share, or they'll do a mini meditation before they start their meetings. I had to drop something at UPS one day, and I walked up and all the UPS drivers were in a circle. They were having like a rah, go do it. Everybody be safe. Everybody relax. Everybody calm down. And I was so impressed that before they got in their trucks and drove off to face the day, they all came together for this moment of presence, for this moment of camaraderie, for this moment of support. And when I dropped off my package, I said, "Were you guys having a meeting?" And the guy goes, "No, we do that every day." Wow, good for you. And if you start to incorporate these into what your office does, what your company, your organization, you're going to improve the bottom line. You're going to have better corporate culture. There's going to be less stress, less absenteeism, less workplace accidents. There's no downside to doing these techniques. Just for example, people who are long-term meditators have lower heart rate. They have better immune systems. It slows the genetic effects of aging. Woo, who doesn't want that, right? So much cheaper than Botox. There's no downside to doing this. Finally, if you think this is too woo or too out there, I will again emphasize that high-powered execs, that sports professionals, Olympic athletes, they use these techniques. They use these tools every day to make sure they succeed. So there are the best stress-reducing techniques I have for a high-stress team. But everything I showed you really goes out the window if you don't put it to practice. Really doesn't work if you don't institute it into your daily life and the daily life of your organization and team. Because when pressure hits, here's something else that goes out the window: communication. Because stress doesn't just eke into our lives, it ekes into every email, every phone call, every personal exchange. And so if you're dealing with stress, it's going to affect all of those other facets of your life. So if you want to learn more about effective communication, go ahead and click on that video below, and I'll show you some of my favorite communication tools, tips, tricks, and techniques. And if you want me to deliver this directly to your team at your next retreat or corporate event, go ahead and click the link in the description. It'll take you right to my website where you can book a call directly with me, and we can see how I can be of service to you and your team. Thanks for watching. Have a healthy day.